Well, it's the end of the NHL season. 2023. Oh, well, I should say the regular season. 2023-2024 regular season comes to a close. And that's all she wrote for the New Jersey Devils. We knew this was coming. They're out of the playoffs, and the playoffs are going to start uh, in a week or so. And the Devils won't be in it. That's what we got into this year, and that's all that's on our minds here in New Jersey. I'm James Burley. Daniel Rebane's with me for Puck on the Parkway. Um, yeah, things not great. I was at that game at the Rock against the Islanders last Monday where they fully sunk the ship that was this uh, SHIT sandwich of a season. And yeah, so that's all she wrote. But, bigger and brighter things ahead. Dan, how you doing, man?
Well, as you can see, I've moved on from hockey season. It's baseball season, especially with your New York Mets, who, after starting 0-5, have turned it around. We're up to 10-8, and we're looking good. So obviously, I'll be paying attention to the hockey playoffs. I love me some good old playoffs, but it's baseball season over here.
And I know we talked about this before, but that's where you and me differ. I love hockey. I do. I've loved the sport since I was a kid, but I can't be bothered to watch the playoffs if the Devils aren't in it. It's not only does it make me sad that they aren't there, but like the last thing I'd want to see is the Rangers succeed, and I think that that might be what happens this year. They're pretty damn good, and
Yeah.
I lose interest when my team's not in it, man. I love the Devils more than I love hockey, I guess.
Yeah, I'm kind of a sicko in that sense that I have to see this thing out. So I have to watch the Rangers get eliminated before I can relax and like calm down. It's like a thing in my family. Me and my
Hmm.
me and my dad. We once like our rival teams are eliminated, then we could just relax for the summer. And the Rangers are in it. They're gonna have a good chance to get to the conference finals and maybe even the finals. So this is gonna be a tough one, but we've been in this situation before. The Rangers have had good teams. They've made it to one cup final in my lifetime. Thank God they got eliminated. And so we'll see if they get the job done. Hopefully not this year. So I can keep my sanity.
Well, with that being said, uh, I do sometimes I am known to tune in to the playoffs when the Rangers are facing an elimination game. So I mean, hate watching. You say rent free, whatever it is. I hate the team, man, and I really enjoy
Go
watching
Washington.
to other teams. Yeah, I mean, there's no way that that series goes anyway but Rangers in 4 or 5. But
Come on,
oh well,
Ovi.
we'll
We're
see.
rooting for you, bud.
We're here to talk about the Devils. It'd be
Yep.
nice if Ovi could do something special, but I have my doubts about that. The season ended the same way it started, unconvincingly, without a lot of heart, without a lot of firepower, and it was uh it was disheartening and it was lackluster. The
Yeah.
4-1 loss to the Islanders. It could have been 5-1 if not for a disallowed goal in like the last 2 minutes. It was really really difficult for me to not be upset sitting in the press box upstairs and looking around the stadium and seeing some sections that were mostly blue and orange. You expect that when the Rangers are good and the Devils are bad, that there's going to be more Rangers and Devils fans. But the last game of the season, seeing how many Islanders fans that there were who were out chanting the Devils at some times. I mean, kudos to the Devils fans who did go.
Yeah.
Honestly, to watch that team brave out that finish of a season with the and cheering as loudly as they did at some times. Hats off to you. I don't know if I would have been able to do that, but it still didn't look great. Um, and like they lose to the Flyers and Islanders in the last two games, who were still fighting for the playoffs, and it's games like that happening all throughout the season that they needed to win and just never really looked like they ever had a stamp on it. It was just a really really sad way to end the season, and hearing from the players in the press conference afterwards kind of reflected that. Timo Meyer acknowledged that he had a great back half to the season, but he was like, I need to get better, man. Like, this wasn't good enough. The team wasn't good enough. Jesper Bratt used the word immaturity all the time about this team, saying that they played an immature style of hockey in games. And Nico was like, "Yeah, it absolutely sucks watching the Islanders go celebrate a playoff berth down the other end of the ice." And we're like, we look around our locker room and we can't figure it out. It hurts a lot. So it was just all bad vibes, man. And it was exactly what you'd expect at the end of an awful season like that.
Yeah, and I think we could kind of put more of the blame on the players now. Obviously, Lindy Ruff got fired like a month or two ago, and Travis Green had his shot at it, and nothing really changed. So now you kind of just look at the players, what didn't go right. The players brought it up, immaturity. Yeah, you could say that. Starting slowly, yeah. I mean, they were one game away from tying the record for giving up the first goal in games. What did they finish with 57
Hmm.
out of 82?
Yeah.
Like that's just you can't win games like that. And just imagine if this team actually just wanted to wake up, actually play some hockey, and show some fight. Look who made the playoffs. Washington, one of the worst teams to ever make the playoffs. I think they finished with a differential of minus 37. I mean,
Hmm.
that's terrible. And we finished 8 points behind them. I mean, look who made the three spot. The Islanders, they were terrible this whole season until the back half of the season. Look, if we had that same run the Islanders had, we'd be in the playoffs right now. Obviously, we probably get smoked in the first round, but at least we'd be there. We'd show some fight, claw back, maybe use some of that momentum going into the next season. But yeah, I think the players said it right. We could get into injuries that they kind of came out and explain what they were going through this season. But yeah, I mean this team just I think you just got to throw this season out. Just learn from what went wrong and just go on to next year because this season was terrible. I mean, to make that bounce back from one year to another, from 22 to 23, the second best jump ever, win a first round, and then come back this year and have a stinker like this. I mean, it sucks. I mean, that's all I can say. I hope we never have another season like this with this core again, and just keep this in your mind, man. Just this feeling, and hopefully they never want to go through something like this again, man.
And looking back through the season, I guess it looks foolish. I mean, like we could play back some of our takes from the very beginning of the season and sound like such idiots. My stuff on Vanacek, especially, but there was still like a feeling throughout the season, at least for me. It was like, okay, this team is good. They're going to turn it around. They're going to
Yeah,
play differently. They're going to look different. They're going to string together wins. And it never happened. And we kept saying it, I would say, up until about the last 2 to 3 weeks of Lindy Ruff's tenure was when I was like starting to say, no, this team sucks and they're not going to figure it out. But like I'm still, because of this core, it still doesn't feel like the Corey Schneider era Devils, where you're like, yeah, no, this team plays crappy hockey and they look bad doing it. They look like a seventh place team. There were like, I still think if you boil down every New Jersey Devils game individually this year with the talent that they had, I feel like there was at least 25 minutes in each game that they lost, let alone the ones that they won, where they're like, this is a good team that can win this game. Like they would have an awful first period most games, and then a terrific second period, and then they'd close it out horribly in the third. And they had a lot of bad bounces, and goaltending was at the root of it. But if anything, for me, having Jake Allen and Capo Kakinen come in at the end of the season and play as well as they did proved to me that goaltending was not the biggest issue at hand, actually. The
yeah,
goaltending was exposed because of other issues in front of it.
yep.
And our league average goaltenders really weren't good enough to right this ship that was broken in front of them. That was my final understanding of it. But in bits and pieces, this team looked like they could still be competitive and do some damage, but they never really did.
Yeah, they have the talent. They had the talent to do it. I mean, if you look at the difference between this year and last year, it's a couple of players. Obviously Damon Severson, Ryan Graves, the biggest losses on the back end. But like when you looked at it and at the beginning of the year, like okay, Luke Hughes takes the production of Severson, and then Ball probably steps up for Graves. And right away, 20 games in or whatever it was, Dougie Hamilton goes down, and you're like, oh man. So now we lost half of our decor from last year. And now you have to insert Simon Nemec, and now you have two 20-year-olds on the back end, plus another 22-year-old. This team was young. It got younger somehow than last year, and I think Fitzy said it best in his end of year press conference. Take a step back and hopefully you take a two steps forward next year.
Hmm.
These type of young players got great experience from this year. They had some highs, but a lot of lows. So hopefully they can learn from this. I mean, Luke Hughes never playing 45 games in a season, played 82. He played all 82 games this year, despite being up and down, inconsistent all year. And you know what? Good for him that he was able to play 82 games because that's not an easy thing to do. Um, so hopefully they take some of these young guys like a Nemec and a Hughes. They take these experiences from this year and they just get better in their sophomore years.
Yeah, I think let's talk about some of these guys individually. Um, I want to talk about Kevin Ball. You mentioned him. Luke Hughes next to Kevin Ball both played 82 games on the back end. A back end that was riddled with injuries and new faces coming in and out all season long. But I think Kevin Ball is a player that maybe, you know, is not good enough to be a top two defensive defenseman. Is he a shutdown pairing guy? In theory, yes, but maybe not. Maybe not that quality yet, but he ended the season with a +1 after playing all 82 games on a team that had -19 goal differential. Um, for me, Kevin Ball had a good season stepping up into this more advanced role. What would you say?
I'd say if you asked me this before the new year, I would say, yeah, he was gonna have a terrible year. But you know what? He kind of responded down the stretch. He got better as the season went on. So I'd say there's some positives to take from the season for Kevin Ball. And we'll see what he does next year with another season under his belt. And hopefully he's a solution to our top six and not a trade piece going forward.
Yeah, so I think I just wanted to speak about him individually because in a sea of underperforming players, especially defensively, we can look at Luke Hughes's offensive numbers, 38 assists. I mean, that's pretty impressive for 47 points in his rookie season. He was one of the better rookies across the NHL, but defensively, there's obviously a lot that needs to be worked on for him, getting beat on the rush time after time, and it's that's casual, like that's a common growing pain amongst NHL youngsters. But Jesper Bratt, 83 points in 82 games. Jack Hughes, 74 points in 62 games, was missed a quarter of the season out to
Hmm.
injury, but still scored team high, among the team high 27 goals. Bratt, Hughes, and Hischier all scoring 27. Hischier, 67 points in 71 games. And if you take away Timo Meyer's first 20 games of the season, I mean, he ended the season on fire with 28 goals total, which ironically is the same amount that Alexis Lafreniere had. So just to show how good this team was a year ago and how different the Rangers were, it's just sad what things have become here. And then after Luke Hughes, really, it's a massive drop off. The next highest point scorer is Eric Holla, who had 16 goals and 19 assists for 35 points. Just the secondary contributors were not as impactful as they were last year. You think about how good Tomas Tatar was in a mid-six role, how good Dawson Mercer was. He took a bit of a step back now with 33
Big
points,
step
despite
back.
playing 82 games again. Another very durable player who I think should be a part of the Devils for a long time for that reason in particular. Um, and yeah, it was some good players here and there. So I'm going to give you some names. I want you to give me a letter grade based on their season.
Hmm.
So first, I'm going to go with, I feel like it's easier for the guys who have played full seasons. I'm going to go Jesper Bratt. Give me a letter grade and I'll give you one too.
I mean, he's probably the most consistent of the year. Obviously, certain parts of the season he had his games where he didn't really put up any points. But overall, I give him an A. I thought he
Mm,
was solid offensively. His first season that he's a point per game player. And I think there's still room to grow. If you have a full Jack Hughes for a full season, and the power play doesn't stink the way it did the last half of the season, I mean, because people got to remember this was a record-breaking like pace for this power play. They were
for the
they
first
were
like two
sit
months of the
they were
season.
sitting comfortably at like 30 something percent, and it
You
just
know,
died to 22. So if we could come back next year with Dougie and Jack fully healthy, I mean, I could again. I predicted he would get 100 this year, and he wasn't that far off. So I could see him hitting 100 next year. So A for me for Jesper Brett.
I'm gonna go A as well. I think it's a no-brainer. The guy had 56 assists and 83 points in 82 games. I mean, it was a it was an even bigger step up from I think he had 73 points last year in
Mhm.
a full season. So he was about a point per game. He is a point per game now. And he still gets some criticism from fans, I would say, for having those droughts here and there. But I think he has more than justified his contract that he is now playing into. So very happy for the Bratman. Going down the line, let's go with Timo Meyer. I'm going to start first because of the way he finished the season and because we later learned of the injuries he was going through.
Yeah,
I'm going to give
announce what his injuries were first.
Yeah, I'm gonna give Timo Meyer a B plus because I still think he never quite, even when he started scoring goals for fun at the very end of the season, I don't think he still has his role in the team quite figured out. I still think he's halfway between a net front, half wall power forward, and I think once his role is a bit more clearly defined, I mean, it helps to have, a healthy uh partnership of another winger and centerman, but the Devils really didn't have that luxury this year. Once that is the case, I think Timo Meyer is going to flourish in New Jersey and be a consistent 40 goal scorer year in, year out. He certainly showed in the games that he was available that, and when he was fully healthy, playing at his best, I would say post All Star break, he really has that ability to him, and he was a 40 goal scorer last year between the Sharks and Devils. So I think that a B plus is fair because it wasn't there for the whole season, but I understand why it wasn't. And you put those pieces next to him. I think he's going to have an A plus season in 2024-25.
Yeah, so we'll say what his injuries were. I mean, he had injuries to both his MCLs, not just one, but he had two MCL injuries at the beginning of the year. So just imagine playing with one injured MCL. He had both of them injured. Um, so yeah, that's tough. And then he comes back and gets a core muscle injury, another muscle you need to play hockey. I mean, this guy went through the ringer this year, and for him to end the year the way he did, I mean, kudos to him because I mean, after one MCL, I probably would be like, you know what, let me shut this down for a bit. But he showed his true heart. He's a fighter, and he came back, finished the year strong. My letter grade, you know, it's tough because, you don't want to knock him for the injuries, but when he was injured and he was still playing, I mean, he was terrible. That's putting it nicely, but I'll give him a B minus for that finish to the season. I think we kind of figured out that we know what his two partners are going forward. I think you have to play him with Nico Hischier at the minimum, and then you put him with Brad as well. I think that's a number one line going forward. I think you guys got to keep that going, not just break it up when things get tough or you go down a goal. Just let that line roll, and we saw what they did down the stretch. I mean, Timo Meyer finishing the season with 28 goals. I never would have thought that.
Yeah.
So good on him to finish strong the way he did, and I know he'll come back stronger. Hopefully he doesn't get these type of big injuries next year, and hopefully he recovers this offseason, comes back stronger than ever. But yeah, B minus for me. And yeah, you bring up he could get an A next year. Yeah, he could be A plus next year. Based on how he finished this year, he'd probably get 50 goals.
Mhm.
So we'll see what he does this offseason.
Um, I think that's a fair point. I'm hoping he can take a big jump. He can bounce off of this momentum from the end of the year. Let's go down. Let's do a defenseman. Uh, Preferably one that didn't miss most of the season. Let's do John Marino. What would you give John Marino in a grade this season?
Man, this was a very disappointing year for John Marino. Um, I don't know if it was him getting more responsibility, if he was dealing with something, but he looked like he just looked like a different player than he was last year. I mean, last year we thought we stole a top four defenseman from Pittsburgh. This year, at some points, he was kind of unplayable.
Hmm.
Um, I'd probably give him a D plus or a C minus. I mean, I just didn't see like anything special from him this year. Like down the stretch, I think he played a bit better with Luke, but like he's had that pairing with Luke at different portions of the year, and he still didn't look good. So I don't know if it was something he did in the off season. I don't know if he was dealing with anything, but now we've had a great year and a terrible year from him. Is there something in the middle? Maybe we see that next year. Um, but yeah, I'd probably lean to the D plus more than a C minus.
I think that's pretty fair. I'm gonna go with a C minus as well. I feel like he took such a big step back, you know, for the way that he defied expectations really last season as yeah, I mean, you said it yourself. It looked like we stole a top pairing defenseman, and we had the luxury of putting him on a shutdown line at the second pair. So for me, he was a luxury piece last year that you were relying on being as good, if not better, with some of the departures on the blue line. But it didn't go that way. He took a big step back, and has to be said that he was below average for most of the season, especially to his own standards. So C minus is, if anything, a bit generous, but that's how I'm feeling for John Marino. Huh, let's see. I don't know if we can do every single player, but let's get some of the
Yeah,
bigger names out of the way.
do Luke.
Luke? All right, well
Yeah.
then give me your grade. Let's just jump right into Luke.
I just want to say I'm impressed that he actually played 82 games. At some points of the season, he was fighting it. I'll give him that. He was fighting it. I thought at one point maybe they should have sent him to Utica to, play like a few games and get back into the groove. But I give him credit for fighting and showing what he did down the stretch as well, because he started getting better down the stretch again. Um, he definitely was riding the wave the whole season. He would have those ups, then he would have those major downs, but then he'd come back up. Based on what he played last year in college, going from playing weekends, just weekends. I don't think people understand. In college hockey, you just play weekends. You play 2 or 3 games max a week. Um, so for him to play all 82 games, to have 47 points, he finished second in rookie scoring. I mean, I think people forget about his offensive side. Obviously, he struggled defensively, but some games he was great defensively. So personally, for what he went through, the waves he went through, the offensive production, I give him a B. I give him a solid B. There's still room to improve defensively. Offensively, he could take another jump as well. For a guy that played 40 something games last year to come straight into the NHL, the playoffs, and then play 82 games than your first rookie season. I mean, that's incredible. So he'll probably be a Calder finalist. So I gotta give him a B, man.
Hmm. I think it's tough to say anything below B when, it was his first full season,
Yeah.
right? And for as long as he played and for the points he put up, yes, it is a B, and I'm gonna go B as well. But I have to make the point that so much work needs to be done defensively for this kid. It's not his fault that he was asked to play as many minutes as he was down the stretch, in some big defensive roles, not just quarterbacking the power play, which I think he did a good job of in times, and other times he looked a little bit lost out there with the pace, but that's par for the course for a rookie, and I guess that just goes to show that this season needed to go the way that it did for some of these guys. Yeah, I'm confident that he'll have a better season and he'll continue to have better seasons as he gets older into this league. But defensively, he was asked to put out many more fires than he could handle, and it came to hurt this team in the end. And that's not his fault. He wasn't ready for it, and he should be in the future. If we're having this discussion again at the same of at the same point next year at the end of the season, and there isn't much growth, I think then we can start to have discussions about giving him a C plus or a C. But for now, he's a B, maybe B minus. I'm gonna go B for him. If we can keep going, I mean, I'm getting sad just talking about these guys. But jump in.
I just want to bring up two more points before we move on from Luke. Someone brought up the stat that if you got rid of empty net goals, he's actually a plus player this year. So I just want to put that in out there as
Mhm.
well. So for what we all think that he had a terrible season defensively, obviously his plus minus on the face of things looks terrible. I mean, it's like minus 20 something. Don't know the
Minus
specific,
25.
yeah, don't know the specific number, but I think he was on the ice for 27 empty net goals or whatever it was this year. He's a plus player this year for on this team, especially. I mean, that's impressive on itself. Um, Obviously we're in a lot of situations where we had the net empty. So put that out there. And then I forgot my second point. So if I think about it, I'll come back to
Just
you.
jump in. Just jump
Yeah.
in. If you think about it, I'm gonna go to the next guy. I'm gonna save some of the heavy hitters for last. I'm gonna ask you about Dawson Mercer now. We did mention him a second ago, and the season he had 20 goals, which is, about where you'd expect him to be, but 13 assists, minus 26 wasn't what we needed from Merc Dog. So, what grade would you
Yeah.
give Mercer?
I've coming into the season, he had all the momentum going into his contract year. I mean, if he had another one of last year's seasons this year, I mean, he could have been asking for six, 7 mil on 8 year deal. But him having a stinker the way he did, I mean, he's definitely lost some money this year, this offseason. Maybe he goes a bridge deal to, show what he actually is more consistently and that this was an outlier, but I'm giving him a C minus. You could probably even put him in the D's if you want, but I mean, he didn't show his offensive side of the game that he did last year. He wasn't shooting as much. He wasn't getting into scoring positions at all. And he was still playing top six for most of the like a lot of the year. Obviously, he was put on the third line uh to kind of go down the stretch of the year, but he was still playing with Jack at points in the year. He was playing with Nico at points in the year, and it just wasn't working for whatever reason. Obviously, he's
Hmm.
played all 82 games now for the first 3 years of his career. I mean, that's a great accomplishment on himself, but I mean, this was just a major step back for him. The only hope is that it is an outlier and he bounces back next year with another 50-point year because we saw what he could do last year. I mean, he was on pace a long time for to get 30 goals. I think he finished just short, but I think he could be a consistent 25, 30 goal scorer in his career, playing middle six, getting some power play time, being a heavy penalty kill contributor going forward, a shutdown, being on a shutdown line. But yeah, just overall disappointing year that he took that step back. So yeah, C minus for me.
I don't want to be too harsh, but I was thinking in the D range.
Yeah.
Um, I'm gonna go D plus for variety's sake. I could give him a C minus, but I think it makes more sense.
Yeah.
It's it's not that he was inconsistent. It's that he felt a step behind in so many instances this season
Yeah.
where, you know, he would have jumped on a puck quicker a season ago. He would have been first on the half wall to chase a loose one. He would have been in the right place at the right time, would have been on rebounds quicker. It just seemed like for as durable as a guy he is, it seemed like he lost a step. Maybe his engine wasn't fully wired at times. It's what it felt like for me watching him. Um, and again, it helps to have guys healthy around you too. I think he's a type of player who can't drive the offense himself, but feeds off of other guys.
Yep.
That's just
Yep.
kind of his game. And So I don't want to hold it to all against him, but a D plus is where I'm gonna leave it. Let's get a few more names in before we move on. I do the goaltenders, but we have different ones than we did to start the season. So I think I'm gonna skip goalies.
I think we
Let's
all kind of know their grades.
yes,
I
it's
think I would say it was
not
like a
not gonna be very
B-ish.
great.
I'd say the guys that we traded for, I'd give them like a solid B minus.
Mm,
They did their job. They kept us in games, and obviously we'll see Jake Allen next year.
hmm
Um, Capo Kakinen probably won't be here, but to be honest, I'd bring him back on a 1 year deal. See if he could if those two can battle for the backup job out of camp, and you trade out who doesn't make it. But um, obviously we'll see at least Jake Allen next year, and hopefully an elite goalie. Leading the net for the Devils. But yeah, let's move on.
Let's move on. Another guy who played 82 games, but maybe his ice time wasn't enough. It was certainly debated all throughout the season.
Oh man.
Let's talk Alex Holtz. 16 goals, 12 assists, 15 of those goals at even strength, which was among the best the Devils had for most of the season. And that was often used as a defense by big fans of his to be getting more time on the ice. So where would you see Alex Holtz?
I mean, for the role that they consistently were putting him in, I mean, he was overachieving. Like clearly for me, he was overachieving the role that he was put in because he was playing fourth line the whole season. If I'm just saying it based on that role, I probably give him a B, but from an overall perspective of what we thought he would do this year, I'd probably give him a C plus, just an average season. Obviously we expected more, but like look what he did in the the minutes that he got. I mean, 15, 15 even strength goals. I mean, that's remarkable for a fourth liner. Like if you
Hmm
got that from a fourth liner, like that's a great season. But we want Alex Holtz playing top six, top 9 minutes, getting power play. And he just wasn't getting those type of minutes from for whatever reason. Obviously, in his end of year presser, they talked about Holtz a lot, and I don't agree with it, but they're trying to make him into a 200-foot player, which obviously says something about what they think about Alex Holtz going forward. You know, you dra you drafted him for goal scoring reasons, and now you want to turn him into something that he's not. I don't know. I don't agree with it, but if we're just talking about his season overall, based on our expectations, I'd give him a C plus. But if we're talking about what he was doing in the role he was given, I'd give him a solid B.
hmm Well, uh, I I'm gonna go B minus. Maybe C plus actually. I still think that I understand the role he was put in. I'm not here to defend it and say that he shouldn't have gotten more minutes and shouldn't have been on the fourth line. He absolutely did not belong on the fourth line. But the dedication to turning him into a 200-foot player makes a lot of sense for me. It's something that the Devils and this leadership did with Jesper Bratt a couple years ago, but I mean the chains were not as tight on Bratt as they have been on Holtz. That much I will admit. But the defensive struggles in his game are very, very clear. Um, as a forward, he gets beat too frequently and too easily in the neutral zone and on the walls, and that's just not sustainable at this level, and certainly not for the way the Devils want to play. Have to be a high energy team, can't get beat in those moments, can't get lose games in transition. And I'm not saying that Alex Holtz is the reason that they missed the playoffs by as many points as they did, but he has a lot of growing in his game. When I think of Jesper Bratt saying immaturity in our game a lot, I think Alex Holtz is one of those players who needs to develop a more mature sense of hockey. And I think he's certainly got the talent, all the talent in the world to be a great player in this league, to be a 40 goal scorer one day, perhaps. But he's very far from that now. And I, as much as I couldn't understand why he was on the fourth line, I couldn't really justify him getting minutes to be with the top six. And I know it didn't really happen this season, so it's tough to say that confidently, but that's where I lean towards on Holtz. You want to jump in here?
Yeah, I'll just say like Fitzy was here when they drafted Alexander Holtz. they knew what they were getting when they drafted Alexander Holtz. He's a sniper. His skating is not the greatest. Obviously, he's still working on his skating. So if you thought, I mean, if you thought he was going to be a sniper for you in the future, I mean, you drafted what you drafted, and now you're trying to turn him into a 200-foot player. You knew he's not a 200-foot player. You knew there was a lot of work to do. So, I mean, this kind of just goes on the GM himself for drafting the wrong player. And, if you wanted a 200-foot player, you could have drafted a different player in that slot. So, I don't know. We'll see what they get out of Holtz this offseason. He might not even be here. He might be traded. So we'll see. I'd like to see Holtz here going forward, but if he's needed in as a piece to get a goalie or to get another top six player, he might have to be involved in that trade.
Well, yeah, we haven't seen the best of him yet, so I
No,
think
we
to
have
trade
not.
him would be very unfair to him and his time in New Jersey. I think he wants to be here, wants to be part of this team, wants to be part of this team's success. That feels inevitable, given
Yeah.
looking around the roster. You see these guys. I would like to see him be a part of this team too. It seems like he could be a very valuable piece to this if he takes a big step into his game. Let's do two more names, and they're going to be big ones. Let's do Nico Hischier, and what grade you would give him. And I mean, I think Nico gets a good grade. I'm gonna go B plus for Nico. I think he was solid when he had to be. I think the group's mentality though, as the captain, I'm gonna take some points away from him though, because I think this group needed better leadership. And I'm not saying that's on him to to get the best out of other guys, but if there's some player to look at, it has to be the guy wearing the C. So I'm gonna go B plus for Nico Hischier this year. 67 points in 71 games, still pretty decent.
Yeah, I'll give him a B plus as well. I was really thinking I could lean and give him an A, but to be fair, if you look at his underlying stats, his defensive game dropped off significantly this year. I mean, he was a finalist last year for the defensive forward, or what is it called again? I forgot. It's blanking my mind. What award was he a finalist for again last year?
The Bergeron. No, I'm kidding. The Selkie.
Yes, the Selke. Yeah, he was a finalist for the Selke, best
They
defensive
should rename
forward.
that the Bergeron.
I like the Selke. It sounds better. But yeah, he fell off dramatically this year as for his underlying defensive numbers. And I mean, you could kind of see that early in the season. I mean, he didn't look comfortable in certain spots. Maybe stuff was weighing on him, but I'll give him credit. His offensive game turned on the second half of the year. Again, another guy, if you told me he was even going to get to 50 points, I'd be like, wow, that's incredible. And he got up to 67. I mean, he consistently shows that he's always in the right spots offensively. His shot is incredible, underrated for the most part. His playmaking ability is there. And you brought up the leadership. I mean, this was always kind of could have been a problem once you gave him the C because he's not the most vocal guy. In the locker room, obviously we're not all in there during the game, what he's saying in between periods. But, Nico's a lead by example type of guy. He's not a rah-rah type of person. So, maybe if you get another, because the other assistant captains are Palat, he's not a rah-rah guy. Jack Hughes, I mean, he could be a rah-rah guy, but I mean, he doesn't have that experience of being in the thick of things in the playoffs. So I don't know. We'll see. The leadership of this team is a little mixed for me, if you ask me. Um, we'll see. But yeah, I'd say a B plus. It would be better if his defensive game was of what he did last year, but still put up the points. Almost was a point a game player, especially after dealing with that concussion early in the season. Maybe that was hampering him a bit. Um, but I'm glad, like a team Meyer, that he finished the season strong.
Yeah. Uh, I think that's pretty fair. I'm gonna go one final name. I think you know who it's gonna be. It's the face of this franchise. He only played 62 games this year. But let's talk about what it was. He got a lot of criticism, and his name is Jack Hughes.
And we know
I mean,
why he
it's
was getting that criticism because he was
because
hurt.
of the expectations he's got.
And he was hurt. We all knew he was playing hurt. I mean, I think it was pretty obvious he was playing hurt, and he was still doing what he was doing.
Hmm. So for me, I'm gonna go B, just a B for Jack Hughes. I mean, he's more than a point per game player. Scored 27 goals in the 62 games he played. Was on pace for 40, and was on pace for 60 plus assists. Would have had 100 points.
Yeah.
So for me to give him a B with that sort of pace, it's because, and this is a criticism he got from a lot of people, is that did he take over games like he was doing last year? And I think that's unfair to expect of him. I know he has that ability, and but it
I'll
was
get
a
into
full
that.
it was a full team thing when it was being done last year. You know, those a lot of those overtime wins were not just Jack Hughes going all coast to coast by himself. It was, Dougie Hamilton finding a seam, Nico winning a battle on the boards, and then Jack Hughes going through. So it's when certain things don't line up, it doesn't give guys like Jack Hughes the opportunity to be Jack Hughes. So I don't want to hold that against him. The fact of the matter is he wasn't as dynamic as he has been in years past. The injuries played a role in that, and he had to miss a big portion of the season with multiple different injuries. And then at the end of the year, when it became very clear that the Devils were not going to be playing for the playoffs, he made the responsible choice to go ahead and get the surgery. So I'm giving him a B. And that's only because I expect so much from the kid.
Yeah, I think we all expect him to be up there with the guys that finished the year in the Art Ross. And to be fair, if we all look back to his start of the season, he was on pace to be one of those guys. I mean, he was putting up points on pace to be in the 150s this year. I mean, his start was crazy, and my fear kind of happened when he got that first shoulder injury back against St. Louis. I mean, he came back quicker than most people thought, and obviously he came back hurt because I mean, as you said, his criticism that he wasn't taking over games this year, and we kind of know why. He couldn't even take faceoffs the 3/4 of the season. I mean, it sucks that injuries hampered him. I mean, he still put up like more than a point per game player with only one shoulder. Like that's incredible to me. If I had one shoulder like I do right now, I could I could barely lift things with my shoulder. And this guy is going out there putting up 70 something points in 60 games. So I give him like Timo Meyer, like this kid's a fighter. I mean, I think he showed that he is a leader. He should have an A. And I don't know. Personally, I think he had a great season despite all the injuries, the expectations. I give him a B plus. Obviously, health is the reason for that because, as you said, he didn't take over games, um, and hopefully because he's had shoulder injuries before. That's probably why he got injured again against Chicago. Like he didn't even get touched; he just touched the ice wrong, and his shoulder popped. Gets injured there. So hopefully he gets this figured out. Hopefully the surgery kind of helps him out going forward. And I think Jack comes back next year, and I think he's in the running for the Art Ross next year. I think
Hmm.
he comes back and he shows people like I am that dude. I mean, he is that dog. I mean, so so B plus. I know I'm going on a rant here, just waffling a bit, but I mean I believe in Jack Hughes. If we had a healthy Jack Hughes this year, even despite goaltending, I bet you we're in the playoffs. So he means that much to this team. Hopefully he's chilling, recovering over back in Michigan over at the brother's house. So you know,
Yeah.
get healthy soon, buddy, and we'll see
Hanging
you
out
next
with
year.
uh hanging out with Jim and Ellen up there. Yeah. So I mean that we could spend all day talking about every player who dressed this season, giving
Yeah,
out grades, but I think we hit some of the heavy hitters there. That's important. Let's talk a bit about going forward. Let's end this episode on maybe something of a positive. What
yeah.
does this offseason have to look like for the Devils to be successful? Obviously, the list is at the top, it's get healthy. And the number two, very close behind, it's get an elite goaltender.
Yeah.
And I think Tom Fitzgerald has made that much clear. And then right below that, number three, get a long-term coach. You've made this point. This coach the Devils get, and I love the way you put this, it has to be their last for a while.
Yeah.
And explain why that is the case.
Yeah, I mean, Fitz has been here for a while now. He put his eggs in his basket for Lindy Ruff, giving him that extension, not going with Andrew Burnett. I think that kind of plays into things. But yeah, this is the start of the window for the Devils. I think they need a guy that's gonna lead this team into the prime years of Jack Hughes, of a Nico Hischier, a Timo Meyer. Like if they fail with this coach, and I mean, like a failure is just not getting to a conference final, a Stanley Cup final. Like making the playoffs shouldn't be like the minimum. Like that should be an expectation. Or it shouldn't be like the hope. That should be the minimum is get to the playoffs and fight for a cup. So if they can't, get expectations, Fitz could be out of a job. Like that this should be his last coach. And that's why, you know, personally, I don't think Travis Green should be up for the job. I don't think he should even get an interview. Obviously, he's got connections with Fitz, so he's gonna, give that common courtesy. But hopefully, I just hope he's not an actual candidate for the job because we saw what he did down the stretch. Obviously, you know, Jack was injured, but like even like a healthy Jack, I think with how the team was playing, they should have been playing way better. And I think we need an actual experienced coach going forward. So I don't know what do you think about the coach?
I mean, I don't know what profile of coach I want for this team yet because we definitely went the experience route with Lindy Ruff, you know?
Yeah,
I mean, that's just about as experienced as you can get. Maybe pigeonholed into some older ways of thinking in terms of dealing with certain players, but that's neither here nor there. I don't think Lindy Ruff was a good coach this year at all, but I'm not sure if him and him alone was the reason this team was not successful. There are young coaches with not a lot of experience that are available. There are not many coaches with all that much experience, at least comparatively, like in Lindy Ruff's case, that I would say move the needle that are available right now at the moment. So if we were to like throw out some names that could maybe be in the running for the Devils, obviously interim head coach Travis Green will be a part of it. I'm not sure if he's going to be the decision, but did enough in this back half of the season maybe to suggest an interview. Uh,
I think John Quenville was reported.
Quenville. I
Mike
know
Sullivan if he's fired. Mike
Mike,
Sullivan if
Mike
he's
Sullivan,
fired.
if he's fired from the Penguins, I think is your best bet. But
Yeah,
that's a big if because I mean the Penguins weren't good, but they were in the mix to the end of the season again with a roster that, well, is not complete. I mean, it's still Sidney Crosby, Malkin, and Letang, and like, I mean, Sidney Crosby is still awesome, still a point per game player, still an absolute legend in this league. As much as I have never been a fan of the guy because he plays in our division and torments us,
yeah,
but um, he was really good, and the team around him maybe wasn't. And I don't know if that means Mike Sullivan's going to be gone in Pittsburgh anytime soon, but that could be the case. I think Jay Woodcroft was fired midway through the season in Edmonton, and I personally liked a lot of the things he was doing with the Oilers. I don't know if he'd be a great fit for the Devils. I don't know if he has enough of a winning pedigree to suggest that he would be the coach. I know Joel Ward is quickly rising through the ranks of coaching in the NHL as the assistant for Vegas, and I mean it's been rumored now for a couple seasons that he might be in the market for a head coaching job somewhere. I think that would be an interesting one, but that's taking a flyer really.
yeah.
So I don't know where I'm leaning. I mean, obviously Sullivan is the name that jumps off the page, but is that a possibility? We don't know, and I'm not
Yeah.
sure if it will be. Of the names that are available, is there one that sticks out to you? Mark Savard is up there, perhaps.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people are gonna like it, but John Quenville might be the name that the Devils latched themselves onto just for his experience going to Cups with Chicago. His attitude in the locker room. Obviously, he's gone through what the Chicago incidents that he's gone through. He hasn't been in the league for a while now. But yeah, I think he could be one of the top guys that Fitzy looks at and says, "I'll give you the keys to this team and get them right." Because obviously he's gone through that with a young Tays and a young Kane. So this team has a lot of similarities with those Chicago teams and with the teams that made those cup runs. So I don't know. Maybe we could see John Quenneville behind the bench next year. I don't know what you think about that.
I mean, I think that his days coaching in the NHL might be done, specifically with what happened with the whole Chicago Blackhawks incident. Whether or not he played a role in that is still not determined, but he did leave the Florida Panthers sort of in a huff back in 2021, 2022. And I mean that franchise certainly recovered with Paul Maurice at the helm, and they've done great things. I think as a hockey mind, it's very clear what Joel Quenneville is capable of, but I'm not ready to say that the Devils need to go that way because it would invite the immediate circus controversy again with it. And I mean, we know very well that the Devils had to deal with that sort of thing this year with the likes of McLeod and Cal Foot. So I'm not ready to say that this would be it. I mean, from a hockey standpoint, he ticks a lot of boxes in terms of experience and winning. But for me, I think this would invite more difficulties than it would success, and I can't see the Devils going this route. Um, I can see them maybe having discussions about it, but I would be very surprised if that's the uh, the direction it takes. Um, I'm pretty sure it was said that he would have to have a specific meeting with Gary Bettman before ever having a job back in the NHL, but that does mean one thing, and that the door wasn't closed for him. So we'll have to wait and see what the deal with that is. I don't know. The coaches are not really at a premium right now in the NHL. I think that it's there's been better days, and I mean I tried to pull up lists of guys, and just none of them really move the needle all that interestingly. Now, I don't know if there are a bunch of names that really jump out. I mean, in the NCAA ranks, Rand Pecknold of Quinnipiac, winning coach last year, was flirting with the idea of going into the pros. I mean, David Carlisle of Denver this year, although I mean, you said Daniel, it's not likely that he leaves at the end of the season.
Yeah, I think you said on Spin Chicklets that he'd entertain an interview. Maybe if he got an interview from the Devils, seeing all of our young talent, that would be able to sway him to come to the NHL. But I think he's comfortable with his coaching in Denver. I mean, he's won two of the last 3 years, so I mean, he's got a good gig over there. So it would have to be something big to get him to come to the NHL.
All right, well, I mean, the off season is the off season. We don't know what's going to happen or what, but one thing we do know is the finalized draft lottery results.
We're back.
The Devils have, yeah, we're back. Oh my God. I never wanted to have to talk about this stupid thing again. This stupid, stupid thing. But the Devils are, I believe they have the 10th highest odds
Yep.
to win the draft lottery. It's about a 3.5% of the first pick, 3.7 of the second.
Hmm.
And we are most likely to get the 10th pick, 73.3% chance of that, 18.4% chance of the 11th pick. Um, I mean, you would know better than I. Is there any name that you're thinking is going to end up a New Jersey Devil in this role, or is this a pick that maybe they trade? Uh, because
Personally,
there's some pieces that they got to fill in here.
yeah, personally, if if we don't win the draft lottery, because the odds are we don't win it. I think this is a pick that you can actually use in a big time player trade. Not necessarily for a goalie, but like if a certain player up in Ottawa became available, maybe this is the pick you kind of sweeten the pot with because the top 10 pick is the top 10 pick. I mean, some of these players, that would be available at that pick are studs. Like a Tisha Ginla over in the WHL, Zeev Buium at Denver. I mean, he's one of the best defensemen in the draft, personally. Um, but yeah, let's just say, but if we did win the draft lottery, I mean, the cream of the crop is Macklin Celebrini this year, won the Hobie Baker as a full-time 17-year-old. Just imagine that. He played the whole season as a 17-year-old in his freshman year at Boston University. They came up short in the Frozen Four, but people are comparing him to Jonathan Toews. He's got that in him. He's a 200-foot player. His shot is remarkable. I just wanted to ask you, let's just say the Devils win the draft lottery. Are you taking Macklin Celebrini? Are you trading down? And if you do take Macklin Celebrini, are you moving Jack Hughes over to wing?
So we talked about this for a second before we started the show, and I was thinking out loud. Oh well, Celebrini's generational. You can't trade him. But then where does he fit on this team? But then the Devils could get a much more necessary part of their lineup should they trade him, and they trade down, still get a decent pick. Doesn't disturb Jack Hughes too much. But I think the answer is you have to draft the kid. And I
Yeah.
think Jack Hughes has already experienced what it's like to be moved off of the center to the wing, whether it's just for face-off purposes or because of to avoid him having some defensive responsibilities in his own zone. I think that's something that is worth doing for the Devils. I mean, you still get him flying through the center of the ice with the puck, regardless of that. You put those two guys together on an. I mean, I'm
Oh,
glad that this is probably not going to happen because, oh boy, I don't want to have to think about the logistics of getting those guys to line up together. But I mean, for a defensive, uh, to defend that from that perspective, that's terrifying, man.
yeah,
You have to say that you take that 10 times out of 10 for me.
yeah. I mean, the kid's a stud. Like he showed it this year as a set. Like, just imagine he's playing guys 5 years older than him, like minimum. Like there's other guys that are 24, 25 in college hockey nowadays. I mean, he's doing this, winning the Hobie Baker as a 17-year-old. I mean, he is generational. He's definitely going one overall. So I mean, if the Devils win the draft lottery, because we've done it before, you know. I mean, to be fair, we went from, I forget what pick we had, but we went up to two for Simon Nemec. I mean, obviously we had better odds that year, but if we can win the draft lottery, maybe get another piece into the pipeline, it could be good that we, you know, didn't do great this year. But we'll see. The odds aren't the best, as James said, 3.5% to win. But hey, man, when there's a chance, there's a chance. So hopefully, again, we're never in this situation again. But you know what? That's the reality of this year. We're in that situation this year, so might as well win it.
Might
So
as well win it. Is there anything else you wanted to get off your chest before we officially move into off-season mode for the Devils?
nah. Thank God the offseason here. I need a break from Devils hockey. Now I get to watch actual hockey. I can't wait. I'm not gonna lie. I can't wait for the playoffs out west. I mean, this is a gauntlet. Vegas is
The
playing
Central Division alone.
Dallas. Vegas is playing Dallas round one. Just,
Yeah.
oh, I can't wait. This is gonna be
Colorado, Winnipeg too.
this is
That's
gonna be
serious.
some really good hockey out west. I'll probably keep an eye on that more than the East because I don't want to be watching the Rangers all the time, even though they'll be on TV. But go Washington. That's it.
Yeah.
Let's go, Obi. We're all behind you. So let's do
Yeah.
this.
No, let's if they can pull that off, I'll be very
One more
happy.
run. That's all we can
Yeah.
pray for, please.
Well, that's all we can pray for, and that's all we have time for on Puck on the Parkway. Daniel Rebane and I myself, James Burley, say thank you for joining us all season long and all from last offseason with the Devils are coming up on a full year of this podcast. And yeah, it didn't go the way we wanted to. Maybe it's us. Maybe it's our fault. Who knows? But
Yeah.
either way, we apprecited having you listening with us and joining us for this journey throughout the season. And we hope to have bigger, better, and brighter things to talk about this off season and into next season. For Daniel Reben, I've been James Burley. Thank you guys so much for joining us and so long.
See you soon.